kung bibigyan ko ng consideration yung prelims kasi talaga, aminin ko sa inyo, hindi ako masyadong natutuwa. I think either hindi ko kayo naturuan ng gusto o masyadong maiksi yung panahon na binigay ko para sa exam. Kasi ang nahalata ko, kahit yung masasabi na natin, batay sa achievements nyo last SEM bilang dean's listers or whatever, kahit yung mga magagaling medyo hindi masyadong maganda rin hindi yung performance na gusto ko mula sa inyo. Kaya ang iniisip ko ay bigyan ng mas maliit na halaga yung prelims upang hindi naman maapektuhan ang inyong final grade. Although importante yung grades, syempre importante yung grades sa inyo dahil yan ang batayan ng inyong pagtatagal dyan sa inyong programa at pagtatapos sa inyong pamantasan. Sa akin bilang inyong lecturer, mas importante na natuto kayo. Kaya ang iniisip ko, at kaya ako binibigay itong mga additional activities natin sa linggo ay upang ma-augment o madagdagan yung inyong pagkakaintindi ng mga topics na dapat kasama sa prelims. Kasi talagang ang nakikita ko sa prelims, medyo may konting kakulangan sa pagkakaintindi nyo at marahil may kakulangan rin sa pagtuturo ko. When something goes wrong, it's more or less usually not just the fault of one party, it's probably the fault of both. So I will own up to my mistakes. So if you'll notice, our activities have been focused on previous topics. Dalawa ang nangyayari ngayon sa ating klase. Meron tayong tinatalakay tuwing Sabado na angkop doon sa ating syllabus. Ang ating syllabus nahati. Prelims, kinds of obligations, midterms, extinguishment of obligations, tapos sa finals, tatapusin natin ang contracts. Yung contracts na mismo. At tulad na sinabi ko sa inyo noon, hindi natin maaaring talakayin ng contracts kung hindi natin muna pag-aralan yung dalawang topics sa prelims at bago prelims at bago midterms. Kaya ang tawag natin dito, this is the sort of iterative learning. This is iterative. You cannot proceed without being well-grounded on the previous topics. Because all of these are related, and then when you finish my course, assuming you pass it and you do well, you will use this knowledge now in applying it to your next subjects. So I have a very difficult and very heavy burden of making sure that your fundamentals are fine, because your professors in the future will blame me if you do not get it right. Okay. Of course, our long-term objective is to do well in the board exams. Because like I told you, URS has a very, very good reputation when it comes to the accounting board exams. And like I told you, my objective is even longer term than that. I want you to be successful accountants or business people such that you are well-grounded in obligations and contracts, because the principles and the theories that we study here are very practical. Nako, I assure you, gagamitin yan. Tulad na paborito kong kwento. CPA kayo sa kumpanya o manager kayo sa inyong sariling business. Kung alam nyo na itong mga prinsipyo na to, application of payments, compensation, whether conventional or legal, when you know these principles, when you know these concepts, and you apply them in real life, you will not only save yourself time, you will save yourself the expense of having to consult your company or personal lawyers and paying their fees, and you will impress a lot of people, especially yourself. So please take this seriously if you are serious about becoming CPAs, becoming business people. Those who do well in this subject and in your subsequent subjects, in accounting in general, I encourage you either to take up law, which is the difficult way to do it, or to get your MBAs. Yes, get your MBAs. The MBA used to be the ticket to a six-figure salary. That's in the hundreds of thousands. Because the MBA schools, especially the good ones, here as well as abroad, train you very well that every company wants you and needs your services, especially sa financing, sa financials ng kumpanya. Diyan matindi yung mga MBA. But even if you don't get your MBA, even if you don't go to law school, please use your knowledge here in practical manners. Alam nyo, kahit hindi kayo mag-practice, halimbawa, kayo ay magkaroon ng pamilya, ayaw nyo nang magtrabaho, whether babae o lalaki kayo, darating ang panahon na kayo uutang sa bangko. Darating ang panahon na kukuha kayo ng credit card. Darating ang panahon na mag-housing loan kayo. Darating ang panahon na bibili kayo sa Lazada, sa Shopee. Binuboy ko itong Shopee ngayon dahil kay Tony Gonzaga. Dapat alam nyo ano ang inyong obligation. At alam nyo anong obligasyon ng kasama nyong ka-business nyo o ka-negotiation nyo. Kasama nyo doon sa negotiations sa Shopee o sa Lazada. Ang Lazada at Shopee kasi, wala silang binibenta. Ang Lazada at Shopee, walang kahit kulangot binibenta. Kahit toothpick, wala silang binibenta. Sila ay portal. Yung mga, kung may business kayo, nagbibenta kayo ng ornamental plants, nagbibenta kayo ng used clothes, gusto niyo yung maraming tao makapuna sa inyo at para maraming bumili sa inyo, i-offer nyo ang business nyo sa Shopee o sa Lazada at sila ang mag-promote sa inyo. No? At batay doon, meron silang share at meron din kayong mga obligasyon. So, you have to know what are your rights as a consumer, as a subscriber to Shopee or Lazada. All of you should know. So this course is a very practical course. It's not something you study every Saturday under the boring lectures of Attorney Balanag and then forget. Hindi po ganito to. This is a very practical course. So, I hope everybody's okay. I hope everybody who was in this class before the Super Typhoon is still here. And I hope your family is well. I had to cancel my hearing Tuesday. I had to rush to Baguio City to check on our house because our house is empty. That is the house we grew up on. Like I told you, I grew up in the mines. And the mines are in Itogon, Benguet. They're quite a distance from Baguio. And we had our own community. We had our own electricity. We had our own water. We had our own bus service. We had our own security service. We had our own hospitals. Ang wala lang kami TV. Matagal kaming walang TV because we were so far from Baguio. But when I was in grade 6, we moved to Baguio City where we already had a house. And that house has been with us ever since then. We lived there until I went to law school. Naiwan na lang mom at dad ko. Well, my parents have passed away. The house is empty. And our tenants downstairs, because we're renting out the basement of our house. Our house has 3 levels. Reported that there was some water damage in the main house. So my brother and I had to go up to Baguio, check on it. It's I love Baguio, I'm a Baguio resident. I studied in Merinol in Baguio. Merinol in Baguio Elementary School is co-ed. It's not for girls only like Merinol was here in Katipunan, Quezon City. And we really had sisters back then. It's depressing to go to Baguio kasi ang dami ng mga squatter, ang dami nakatira doon sa mga bundok-bundok. They're slowly destroying the mountainsides, they're destroying the vegetation, they're destroying the trees. And pag nakalbo lahat yan, Baguio City sits inside a valley, inside a bowl, bowl, B-O-W-L. And what happens to bowls when it rains? It rains, di ba napupuno? So without the trees to absorb the rainwater, one of these years, if not days, Baguio will slide into La Union because of the floods. In fact, during the rains, Baguio does get flooded. It's very funny. Baguio sits on top of a mountain, but it gets flooded. But the house is okay. Some minor damage from leaks. Just get somebody to fix them next time we go up. So at least I have good news to report from my end. I hope the news from your end is also just as good. Like I said, I wish you would follow me in our civil code as well as in De Leon when we go through these topics. Today's topics are application of payments, Articles 1252 to 54, and compensation, which are Articles 1278 to 1290. Now, not all of these provisions are very useful to you as regular people who have to deal with contracts, nor to you as accountants in a business. They're really more relevant to lawyers. But for purposes of the board exams, you have to study them all. Okay? You have to study them all, unfortunately. But I will point out to you those that are not so useful. So application of payments and compensation, I group them together. Although if you read De Leon, they're not together. And the reason why I group them together is because they have similar ideas. Application of payments and compensation refer to situations where, remember, we're talking about extinguishment of obligations. We already talked about payment or performance, di ba? Ang sinabi kong term nga under the common law, payment is really satisfaction. The satisfaction of both parties such that none of them is willing to sue the other. Diba? And the law wants parties in a contract to be satisfied. Now, one of the special forms of payment is two of the special forms of payment are application of payments and compensation. And these are special forms because technically no money passes hands. Ano? Nahalata nyo ba yun? Mahalata nyo yun. Pag makita nyo, pag pinaliwanag natin ang application of payments. No money exchanges hands. But both parties are satisfied. That is our key word here in this chapter before we take up contracts. Satisfaction. When the party is paid, he is satisfied. He or she is satisfied. When we apply payments or when we partake of compensation, whether voluntary or legal, both parties are also satisfied. Ngayon, you have to take into consideration the fact that there could be total or partial compensation. So we'll get to that shortly. So the definition I leave to you, but this is the outline that we are working on. Sorry, I have to do this because I'm working with two screens. My large monitor, which is on top, is not very high. It's limited by my table. I don't know if you can see this. Ito ang problema mga kaibigan ko eh. I realized when I was looking at your messages to me after the assignments, that some of you are probably reading or watching these lectures in a cell phone. Or some of you may be having signal problems or Wi-Fi problems. Maybe you're using data instead of a router. Now, I really don't know what to do about problems like that. I can understand if you encounter problems like that, and I'm willing to compensate, but I cannot think of a way to make my rendition or my conveyance of the information more understandable to you other than what the technology offers to me. Ang advantage ko talaga, mga kaibigan, is, I live in a comfortable house and we have unlimited Wi-Fi, and it's quite powerful. It's fiber optic. And even during the worst of storms, we have Wi-Fi. And even when there's no kuryente, as long as PLDT is sending a signal, I can put a battery to my router and I can still have Wi-Fi. So, nanonood po rin ako ng YouTube. I'm very fond of watching documentaries. I don't watch TikTok or those useless things. I watch YouTube documentaries about history and current events, especially the war in Ukraine now. Kung sino sa inyo interesado makipag-chat sa akin tungkol sa Ukraine, please tell me. Okay. So, yung mga nagsa-cellphone lang, ewan ko kasi kung nakikita nyo itong pinapresent ko. So, ang ginawa ko, kung mahalata nyo last time, pinadala ko rin yung kopya ng aking lecture notes, which I will also do now. The problem is that by the time you're looking at that, while you're reviewing for your, let's say, your midterms, baka nakalimutan nyo na kung bakit ko pinapresent ito. So, I hope, kung meron kayong technical problems, ma-resolve nyo yan, dahil wala akong alam na ibang paraan para magbigay ng lecture online. Ang aking tingin, dahil ang sarili kong pamantasan ng UP, pinilit ni Pia Cayetano, who is my underclasswoman in law school. Pinilit niya si Danny Con, the president of UP, who was my upperclassman in law school, and he was the president of UP. Pinilit niya ang UP na mag-face-to-face next sem. So, malamang mag-face-to-face na talaga ang lahat ng kolehiyo kasama ng URS. So, hindi ko alam kung magkikita tayo ulit. Hindi ko alam kung ako'y kukunin ulit magturo. Ngunit malamang yan ang mangyayari next sem. Magkakaroon na ng face-to-face. Dahil ang mga bata pumapasok sa elementary school. So, I'm presenting to you my lecture notes. And the outline, the essence of application of payments is that it is only between one debtor and one creditor. There can only be application of payments between one creditor, one debtor. It involves two or more debts of the same kind. So, yung obligations to give a definite thing, mahirap yung application of payments doon. And in fact, it's almost impossible. Because when you are, halimbawa, ano yung mga maalala nyo, ano yung mga obligations natin to give a definite thing? Halimbawa, pintor ako. Diba? Pintor ako. Tapos si Miss Di Umano ay isang sculptor. At nag-usap kami, Nicole, meron ako magandang painting. Magugustuhan mo to. Kasi alam ko interesado ka sa mga gardens. Ito, painting ko to ng mga magandang gardens. Para siyang Monet. You know Monet, the famous French painter. He always painted the same thing in his garden. At I always say Givenchy, but it's not Givenchy. The French thing will get to me. Monet is spelled M-O-N-E-T. Yung E-T, A sa French. So, Monet. So, si Nicole naman, sinabi niya, magkano yan? Bigyan mo ako 5,000. Si Nicole naman, eskultura siya eh. So, she made this, she made a statue. It's the statue of the hero of Ukraine during the 18th century. So sinabi, attorney, meron din akong statue, baka interesado ka. 5,000 rin. Diba? The historical hero of Ukraine, baka magustuhan mo. Pinakita ni Nicole sa video, sa Messenger. Sabi ko, yung ganda nga. What happens here? Do I have to give Miss di umano 5,000 pesos. Does she have to give me 5,000 pesos? Hindi na, mag-apply application of payments lang kami. Because we have one debtor, one creditor. She is a creditor to me. I am a creditor to her for my painting, and she is a creditor to me of her statue. Are there two more debts? There are two debts. She owes me 5,000 pesos for the painting. I owe her 2,000 pesos for the statue. Now, I told you it's very difficult for application of payments to apply to an obligation to give. But this is not an obligation to give a definite thing, because in this contract, in this transaction between Ms. Di Umano and me, we're not talking about paintings and sculpture. We're not talking about money. And so the other prerequisite of 1252 applies. There are two more debts of the same kind. The debt is not, my debt to Ms. Di Umano is not painting. Her debt to me is not sculpture. It is money. Money for her, money for me, it's the same obligation. Iba yan kung ang aming obligation is to do. Diba? Halimbawa, instead of giving Miss Martinez, instead of giving Miss Martinez, Jana, painting, I hire her to paint my house. And then she also sells me, let's say, used clothes. So I pay her 5,000 pesos to paint my house, and she sold me 5,000 pesos worth of clothes. Pwede set off yun. Pwede yung application of payment. But the obligation to paint, that is not subject of application of payments, because the obligation to do something is personal. So please remember that in application of payments, personal obligations are not susceptible, cannot be subject of application of payments. And then finally, the third requirement under 1252 is that the amount paid between the two parties must cover the entire debt. So, ano ang pinakamadaling example nito? Although maganda example ni Con, magandang example ni De Leon. If you look at De Leon and De Leon at pages 212 to 13, that's a good illustration of application of payment. So please note, the application of payment is usually the application as to which, halimbawa, my obligation to Miss Gaspar is I have a debt to her for a painting, as well as a debt to her for let's say some clothes I bought from her on her online business. So the total debt, 5,000 pesos for the painting, 5,000 pesos for the clothes, 10,000 pesos. And she owes me also 12,000 pesos for another transaction. So the application is usually applied by the debtor. So the debtor tells the creditor, ito yung bayad ko, ito yung utang na dapat bayaran. And if you look at the provisions, I don't have it here. We use the term onerous, so please take note of this. when the debtor does not designate which debt should be paid first, from the payments that he has made, uh, the rule is that you pay the most onerous debt first. Onerous is a fancy English term for yung pinakamatindi na utang. Ano? Uh, ano ang pinakamatinding utang? Ang pinakamatinding utang usually yung malaki ang amount, syempre. Yung pinakamalaki ang interest. At yung due na. Ano? Of course, in application of payments, all of the debts to which application of payments is being made should already be due. Such that if the amount which is, and here we use the term tendered, you're actually just tendering because there's no money exchanged. You're actually tendering. When you tender the amount, although the provision, the law says that the amount paid must cover the entire debt, it may not cover all the debts. So, what is the practical effect kung ikaw yung pinagkakutangan? Let's say, Ms. Gaspar, I owe her 10,000 pesos and she owes me 5,000 pesos. So I tell her, since you owe me 7,000 pesos, para hindi eksakto. Since you owe me 7,000 and I owe you 10,000, can we apply the 7,000 to the first debt, which is 5,000, and 2,000 to the second debt? Diba? 5 plus 2, 7. If Ms. Gaspar agrees, then we have what is called proportionate payment. Ngayon ko ako si Ms. Gaspar, bakit ko tatanggapin yung partial payment? Sinasabi nga sa Article 1252, kailangan full payment. Kasi, mas mabuti yung nabayaran ka na ng konti kaysa hindi. Di ba? Mas mabuti yung nabayaran ka na ng konti kaysa hindi. So, it is to the creditor's interest that a partial payment is made. So, although 1252 contemplates the situation where the payment, application of payments covers the entire debt, a proportionate application of payments is also allowed because it is to the interest of the creditor to be paid even partially. Such that what happens now is that if there's a 3,000 peso payment, I owe Ms. Gaspar 3,000 despite the set-off, the set-off application payments. Then it is to her interest. Okay, we'll look at the example given by the best example is really given by De Leon. In the De Leon example, you have to take a look at when the various debts are due. So I've been giving you examples really of double application of payments, which is really compensation. This is the best example. So there is 1,500 which is payable on, let's say, September 5, and another 1,200 payable September 20. Then a specific transistor radio which is worth 2,000 on September 20, and 1,000 payable October 15. So today is let's say October 1 already. So if D pays on September 20, 1,500, application of payments occurs when he says, okay, well, bayad na yung 1,500 na utang ko sa'yo, which was due on September 5. Or if you like, I'll pay the 1,200 and still owe you 300, plus I'll pay the September 5 obligation. Why does the law allow that? why does the law allow application of payments? It's because it gives the parties more freedom to extinguish their obligation. And like I told you, the law favors that obligation should be satisfied at the soonest possible time. No? Mahirap naman yung meron kayong kontrata for 1,000 years or 500 years, di ba? Paano mamamonitor yan? So the law favors that the parties, although they're free to contract, they should contract. Like I gave you the example last time of a condominium corporation, it's only for 50 years. Yung franchise ng ABS-CBN was only for 25 years, di ba? Mga ganon. So, the law allows application of payments because it allows the debtor more freedom to settle the most onerous debt. Halimbawa, let's make the example of De Leon more complicated. The September 20, the later obligation, has a higher rate of interest or is subject to the deposit of a security or the taking of a guarantor. Alam niyo yung security. Ms. Gaspar allowed me to borrow money from her or get something from her, but I had to give security. In other words, had to give something, an article or a thing which was valuable to me as well as to her as a security for the payment, which is later on we'll take up you'll study comodatum and bailment in your subsequent courses. That is a more onerous obligation because it involves the giving of a security, the giving of a thing, and the debtor might be interested in releasing that thing from its obligation, di ba? Pag ikaw ay nagsanla ng relo o cellphone, you might be in your interest to get it back right away. So instead of paying yung 1,500 pesos, kasi yun yung sinabi ni De Leon, may pera ka, binayaran mo 1,500, kaso ang 1,200 ay more onerous. It involves security, it involves a higher interest rate, it involves taong ayaw mong mapahiya ka, di ba? Ayaw mong, it involves a guarantor. Nagpag-guarantor ka sa iyong ninang, nagpag-guarantor ka sa inyong kapitbahay. Nakakaya naman kung inuna mo pa yung utang mo kasi yung utang na pwede na sanang ma-release yung guarantor. So this is when we apply that rule. And this is where the example in De Leon becomes more complicated, but it shows you why we allow application of payments, because it allows the debtor greater leeway in settling his or her most onerous debt. So, common sense, when you pay 1,500, you are really releasing the first debt, which was due on September 5. But the September 5 obligation is just mutum. M-U-T-U-U-M, a simple loan. It is not onerous, although it is due. But the September 20, which is only for 1,200, is more onerous. So, you as a debtor, you may want to apply payment to that debt, which is already due, instead of the first one. Because it's very easy to pay a loan. A simple loan, it's harder to pay one which has a security or which has a guarantor. So that is the logic behind that. Now this is the more complicated one, and I was already illustrating it a while ago. Compensation. Compensation is also called in American law set off. So you might see this term. compensation or set off occurs when, so this is how you'll distinguish it from application payments, which I did not make very clear earlier. Mali yung binigay kong illustration. The best illustration for application payments is that one in De Leon. I should have tried to change it. What I was illustrating was really compensation or set off. Compensation or set off is when both parties are creditors and debtors to each other, and at least two obligations are involved, and they involve only consumable things or money. Both debts are both due, liquidated, and demandable. So let's take up the term liquidated. A claim is liquidated when the amount and the time to pay is fixed. Put another way, liquidated claim is a demandable debt. Now, why do we have to use the term liquidated? Because the agreement between parties may not yet fix the amount, because the amount depends on some future occurrence, diba? It's a conditional obligation, or it may require the action of a third party. For example, I'm selling a car to Mr. Lilang, but I do not know the value of the car because it will be determined by a third party, let's say an auctioneer. Because I am selling the car, and not an auctioneer, but an appraiser. I'm selling the car. I have no idea how much it is. So Mr. Lilang also has no idea how much he will buy it, but he has an idea because he knows the make and the model. Nakapag-research na siya sa Google. He knows how much it is. I have also an idea, but I would rather that appraiser, a third party, determines it. So when Mr. Lilang and I agreed that I will sell him a car as long as the appraiser gives a value to the car and as long as he agrees to the appraisal, that is already the agreement between the two of us. That is a demandable obligation. But the amount is not yet fixed. It is not liquidated. So for assuming that there are other obligations involving Mr. Lilang and me, for which we can operate compensation or set off, the debt first has to be liquidated. So once the car that I'm selling is been liquidated, let's say at 400,000 pesos, and Mr. Lilang agrees that, oh yeah, that's a great deal, 400,000 pesos, I'm willing to pay that. That is the time when, if at all, compensation or set off can occur between Mr. Lilang and me. So compensation is, again, just like application of payments, does not really involve, it is truer here in compensation than in application of payments. Because in application of payments, the illustration given by De Leon, money was given out. Ano? In compensation, almost no money is given out. Walang pakitaan ng pera because you are both mutual creditors and debtors. And you owe each other through various transactions which are due at different places at different times, but you decide already to liquidate your obligations to each other by way of compensation. There is no longer any need really for money to be transferred, because the obligations already involve things of value. That's why if you look at one of the requirements, it should be for consumable things or money only. I don't know if De Leon says this, but these are the classifications of compensation. compensation is conventional, where or at nawala yung conventional. Voluntary conventional. When both parties agree to it. Okay? Convention means by agreement. There is another time which is legal, and this is provided in the law. And by contract. Because the contract is law between the parties. And related to this is judicial. Judicial compensation is really with reference to parties that are suing each other. So don't bother yourself too much with that. Just remember that there's such a thing as judicial compensation. Legal compensation operates by act of law. So you look, when we go through the civil code later on, especially when you study other types of contracts, you will see that there is legal compensation or compensation required by law in certain transactions. Okay. Facultative compensation occurs if you look at Articles 1287 to 88. It occurs when the debtor undertakes to do two or more things, or to offer two or more means of complying with this obligation. And compensation may be total or partial. And again, the reasoning why total or partial compensation is allowed is because, again, it is to the interest of both parties, and it is the intention of the legal system to finish as many transactions as possible para hindi masyadong komplikado. Kung kayo yung dalawang parties na may utang sa isa't isa, kahit na kulang yung bayad ng isa, tatanggapin nyo na yan eh. Like I told you earlier. Kasi, at least nabawasan yung utang sa inyo. Now, Article 1285, with regards to third persons, guarantors and things like that, just study it. I'll never ask it. If you malas kayo at ang board examiner nyo when you take the CPA board, ay natay pa nitong Article 1285, ay pag-aralan nyo na lang before the board exams, ha? But between now and then, you can just forget about it. It's not very practical. Now, I'd like you to remember 1287 and 1288. There is no compensation allowed in this contracts of deposit, comodatum, or mutum. Deposit is when you give something, an article, to secure a certain transaction or obligation, usually a loan. Comodatum is when you give something which is fungible or which is consumable, and then you expect it back. Okay, so halimbawa, kapitbahay nyo naubusan ng asukal, humingi sa inyo, pinahiram nyo na asukal. Diba? Mahal na asukal ngayon. Diba? Panahon ni Bongbong Marcos, mahal na asukal. Pinakailaman niya kasi yung Sugar Regulatory Agency. Mahal na asukal ngayon. So, syempre, gusto mo maibalik yung asukal. Ibabalik ng kapitbahay mo yung asukal either as money or as asukal rin. Diba? Walang interest. Usually, wala namang interest yan. Diba? Mag-interest ba naman kayo sa kapitbahay? Comodatum is usually gratuitous. It is when a thing is given with the expectation that will be returned in the same condition. Ngayon, yung asukal, siguro pare-pareho naman lahat asukal, di ba? Unless you're using confectionery sugar o panutsa. Wala naman siguro ngayon gumagamit ng panutsa. Mayroon pa ba kayong kilala ng gamit ng panutsa? I do the cooking around the house because my wife has to work in an office. I can work here at home, so I cook at home. I was going through a pantry, nakita kong panutsa. So I was thinking, ano ba ang gamit ng panutsa talaga? So you'll have to return yung sugar, yung kapitbahay niya will have to return yung sugar na hiniram niya in the form of sugar also, whether brown or white. No compensation is also allowed in claims for legal support. In other words, kung meron kayong kiniklaim na legal support, halimbawa, dependent pa rin kayo. I doubt if you're dependents, you all look like you're adults already. But you're still dependents insofar as allowance and things like that from your parents. So, hindi pwedeng i-set off yung kung may utang kayo sa parents nyo, di ba? Di ba? May utang yung parents nyo na allowance, may utang kayo sa parents nyo na bumili kayo ng asukal. Technically, you will not, they will not allow you to exercise compensation between each other because one is for support. Neither is it compensation allowed for civil liability for purposes of public policy. You see, you will only incur civil liability as a result of a criminal case or a case for courts. And the law wants the parties in a case to fulfill their liabilities as stated in the court decision rather than to set it off against each other. So although the parties in a case for, di ba, nagbanggaan, si Mr. Galicia ay may-ari ng jeepney at siya rin ang driver. At si Mr. Gregorio, Miss Gregorio naman, Mr. Gregorio, I'm sorry, I cannot tell your gender from your profile picture and your name. Is the driver of private vehicle, a case which I'm handling now. So nagbangga, nag-asunto ko sa korte. At sinabi ng korte, sige, Mr. Galicia, ikaw may kasalanan, bayad ka. 100,000 yung nasira doon sa sasakyan ni Mr. Gregorio. Bayaran mo to. Sinabi ni Mr. Galicia, si Gregorio, may utang yan sa akin. Umutang yan sa akin 3 months ago. Bumili siya ng lupa sa akin, may kulang pa siya 100,000. Pwede ko ba i-set off yun? Pwede ba kami mag-compensation? The law does not allow that. If you go to court and say that it will not be allowed. You know? You can do that. You can talk to them kung papayag si kabilang party outside of court, but the courts usually will not really allow compensation in cases involving civil liability. Just remember this: there's no compensation when you see a problem in your exam, or when you see a problem during the board exams, or when you see a problem when you're already practicing as accountants that involves deposit, comodatum, mutuum, legal support, or civil liability. No compensation is allowed. Okay. Otherwise, compensation is allowed for most of all of these other obligations. Now, I'll give you a personal story. I don't know if I gave the story here or I gave it in another class. There was a time during the pandemic that Meralco allowed payment of the bills because people were not working. For example, had to close down my law office. I did not have cases for almost 2 years because of the pandemic. So ang ginawa ng Meralco, they allowed the payment later on in installments. But that did not stop. So they allowed installments, I think, for 3 months, no? 3 months of the pandemic, people were not required to pay on time. Basta they paid it in installments. So you had to sign a contract that you agreed to it. The contract was online. Siyempre, wala namang lumalabas. Tapos, but after 3 months, Meralco would continue charging you for your electricity. Wala naman libre, di ba? Hindi tayo dapat umasa ng libre. Yung binigyan tayo ng payment by installments, magandang partida na yan, magandang concession na yan. So, they allowed for... My wife and I, despite the fact we have so many degrees, we have so many diplomas on the wall, we made a mistake in reckoning if we had already paid the installment. In our case, because our electric bill is rather large, we did not correctly reckon the payment of installments. Ang nangyari, nag-application of payments ang Meralco. So that, bayad kami ng bayad. In fact, there were several months na, just to be sure, I paid more than what was required in the bill. Alam mo, ang bill namin ay 7,000. I paid 8,000. Just to, kasi hindi ko matiyak kung bayad na ba kami o hindi. Actually, kasalanan niya ng Meralco kasi dapat rini-report nila dun sa resibo, sa bill, kung bayad na o hindi. Maybe they did, but we just misunderstood. So, ang nangyari, yung 8,000 na binayad ko, akala ko over na lahat. They applied it to the payments which I forgot to make completely dun sa installment. So I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that every time I paid, I wasn't paying for the current month. I was paying for the previous installments that I had not paid. And 3 months of 7,000 each month is a lot of money. So the guy from Meralco comes to the house saying, it's good to disconnect our meter. Sabi ko, paano mangyayari yan na puputulan kami? Alam ko, current kami. Tingnan mo ito, resibo ko, bayad ako ng bayad. Tingnan mo, 3 months ago, ang binili sa akin, 7,000, binayaran ko. 8,000 pa nga. Tapos, 2 months ago, ang bill ko, 6,000, binayaran ko yung 6,000 na yan. 6,000, nagbayad ako. Tapos, last month, ang bill ko, 5,000, bumaba. So, nagbayad rin ako 5,000. Bayad ako. I went to Meralco just to clear it up. And the account officer reminded me of the law on application of payments. Sabi niya, sir, yung binabayaran niyo tuwing buwan, hindi yan napupunta doon sa current amount. Yan ay napupunta doon sa utang niyong installment kasi hindi niyo binabayaran buo. Talaga? Tingnan nga. It's only when she showed me what was on the computer of Meralco that I understood why application of payments had been made, because yung breakdown nilang installments na bayad sa mga buwan na hindi kami nagbayad, kulang pala yung binayad namin, I think, for two installments. So what does Meralco do? It does not even have to tell me that they have applied payments, that they have operationalized application of payments, di ba? Automatic yan. In fact, the accounting software of Meralco, which you will, these types of accounting software you will be familiar with when you are working already as accountants, will automatically deduct any payments and apply it first to the payments that are unpaid. Di ba? Ganun rin yan sa credit card. Sa credit card, like I told you, I think this is the class I told it. The credit card debt is one of the most onerous debts because first, the interest rate charged is very big. Typically 30. I don't have a card anymore. I paid off all of my credit card debts para wala na akong isipin dyan sa credit cards na yan. The only credit cards are with my wife, and that's what we use when we go abroad. The credit card interest rate is typically 36% a year or 3% a month. And that is very high interest rate because at one point, the interest rate for borrowing from banks or for preferred clients was 1%. There was a time when there was almost no interest rate. In some countries, there's almost no interest rate for certain loans, for certain clients. So the current interest rate, I believe, is for loans is 6% a year, which is 0.5% a month. In a credit card, you're paying 3% a month. So it's very mabigat yan. Why does the credit card do that? Do you remember, class? Why does the credit card do that? Tanungin ko, tignan ako nakikinig talaga kayo sa sa klase ko. Is Sunny Maya Saranilla a male or a female? I'm sorry,
Female po.
Yeah, you're either a very good, beautiful woman or a very good-looking guy. Okay, Miss Saranilla. Why? Do you remember why credit card companies offer? Why do people take credit cards kung 3% a month? Ang babayaran mo interest, napakabigat. Why? Do you remember? I said the reason. If you don't remember, can you tell me why? Di ba, Miss Saranilla, pag pumunta ka sa mall, hindi ka pa nakapasok doon sa National Bookstore, hindi ka pa nakapunta sa Jollibee, doon pa lang sa lobby, meron itong mga mama, may hawak silang flyer. Sabi niya, miss, sandali lang. Bibigyan kita ng flyer, mag-apply ka ng credit card. Bakit halos pinamimigay nila yung mga application ng credit card? Bakit gusto nila maraming tao magkuha ng credit card? Alam naman nilang napakamahal ng interest rate yan. Bakit?
For ano po? To exchange for convenience po.
It's very convenient, ano? Pag may credit card ka, hawak mo yan. Halimbawa, alam nyo when you start working, you'll know this, when you start working, lalabas yung pangalan nyo sa SSS, di ba? I-report yan ng kanyo, ng employer nyo, o lalabas yan sa GSIS kung sa government kayo. Binibili ng credit card company sa mga listahan na yan. Kung sino yung pumapasok sa marketplace. Kasi offeran kayo kaagad ng card. When you have your first job, your credit limit is very low. So, 5,000 lang yan. 10,000 kung malaki-laki. My daughter, when she got her first job was as a call agent. Ano yung call agent? They handle calls, ano? Sa BPO, sa business processing outsourcing company, so the BPO is located in the Philippines, but their clients are abroad. In this case, if I remember correctly, my daughter's first company, ang client nila was an American telephone company. So my daughter was providing directory assistance. And because my daughter could speak Spanish and French, she was providing directory assistance to those who are calling in Latin America or who are Mexican Americans speaking in Spanish. Okay, I think once in a while she'd handle a call in French. Yung kanyang credit limit was 10,000, but her salary is much larger than that. So what happens is that the credit card company will let you have a card, credit limit for 5,000. Ano mo bibili ng 5,000? Siyempre mga damit na lang yan, pagkain, gano'n, maliliit lang na bagay. You cannot buy appliances unless you're buying very cheap things, ano? And the reason why is because tinetest mo na nila kung maganda ka, you're a good payer. Yeah, if you're a good client. If you're a good client and ginamit mo yung 5,000 peso limit, maliit lang yan. Dinala ni Miss Saranilla boyfriend niya, trinate niya sa Greenwich or sa Shakey's Pizza, tapos nanood silang sine, credit card niya pa rin ginamit. Maliit lang yung amounts, binayaran niya kaagad. Di ba? Good client si Miss Saranilla. Tataasan yan ngayon ng credit limit mo. Nakita nila si Miss Saranilla. Good client ito. Hindi na 5,000. Gawin na natin 50,000. Dito na ngayon. Dito ka na na-trap, Miss Saranilla, ng credit card company. 50,000 ngayon. Para kang may dalang 50,000 tuwing lalabas ka sa mall, di ba? Pagkasama yung boyfriend mo, para kang milyonarya kasi siguro naman kahit anong gusto ng boyfriend mo, kahit anong wish yung dalawa, makakayanan ng card mo. 50,000 ang credit limit mo. So it's easy to spend. The reason why credit card companies want you to have credit cards is for you to spend it. Ngayon, Ms. Aranilla, paano ka magbayad ng payment sa credit card? Alam mo ba? Nakita mo ba yung mga ate mo, kapatid mo, mga kapitbahay mo, mga pinsan mo na nagtatrabaho na?
Opo.
Paano?
Actually po, si Papa po merong credit card and
Okay.
nagbabayad po kami through sa mga bayad center, ganun po.
Don't be specific because I don't want to intrude into your personal life. And you have no right to divulge in a public place like this what your father does. But let me just ask this na lang. Just because we're using this as an example for class, do you buy appliances with that credit card?
Hindi po. Grocery lang po.
Grocery. Do you pay for your groceries at once? Halimbawa, bumili ka ng groceries na, alam mo, pumunta ka sa SNR, mahina yung 10,000. Ha? Do you pay for it right away or ini-installment? You can answer theoretically if you don't want to say anything about your family. Okay lang yan. I'm not interested in the truth. I'm interested in making this an illustration for the class. Installment.
Binabayaran po siya agad.
Installment siguro. Kasi yun ang pinaka-conveniente. I don't know if you remember, class, I told you that credit card companies like borrowers, like card holders who are revolvers. I'll write it here in my lecture notes, but remember why I wrote it. I'll use very large letters. Revolver. Can you see that? A revolver is a credit card holder who pays on installment. And when you pay on installment, the part of the credit, the installment which is due, will be subject to 3% interest. Doon kumikita ang credit card. Now remember why, maalala niyo pa ba bakit halos lahat ng tao ino-offeran ng credit card company? Binibigyan ba nila lahat yan? Mr. Ribio, do you have any experience on this?
On where po, sir?
Diba, sinabi ko sa inyo, pagpasok mo pa lang sa mall, dudumugin ka na ng mga nag-offer ng credit card, di ba? Nakita mo na ba yan, Mr. Ribio?
Opo.
Nag-offer sila yung application form, di ba?
Opo.
Pag fill up yung application form na yan, ibigyan ka na ba ng credit card?
Actually, may hinihingi po silang mga requirements.
Oo. First, makita nila na kaya mo magbayad. Di ba? Meron kang kinikita. O kung wala kang kinikita, ikaw ay anak ng isang may kinikita. So, halimbawa, pwede kang bigyan ng supplementary card ng mga magulang mo kung sapat yung kanilang kita. So, you can have a supplementary card from your parents. Ang credit limit halimbawa ng magulang niya ay 50,000. Ang supplementary mo, 5,000 lang halimbawa. Kasi wala ka pa naman trabaho, estudyante ka lang. You will just use that credit card, supplementary credit card for buying school things or mag-blowout sa mga kaibigan once in a while siguro, Okay. So, yung credit card application na yan, it's subject to credit investigation. At pag pumasa ka sa credit investigation, doon ka lang nila bibigyan ng credit card. And like I told you, your first credit card, mababa pa lang ang credit limit. Kasi tinetesting nila kung anong klase kang credit card client. Mr. Ribio, ang pinakaayaw na kliyente ng credit card ay yung nagbabayad ng buo tuwing buwan. Sino yan? Halimbawa si Mayra de Dovo. Is that E or I? A. I'm sorry, ah. Dadovo. Are you with us?
Yes po, sir.
Ang pinakaayaw na kliyente ng credit card, yung nagbabayad ng buo. Bakit kaya? Do you have a guess why credit card companies do not like credit card holders who pay for their monthly bills in full?
Baka po mas mababa yung interest kasi isang bagsakan na po yung...
Walang interest, in fact.
Opo.
When you pay your credit card in full at the end of every month, you are not incurring any debt because you did not buy anything on installment. The credit card company will only charge you if you borrow beyond 1 month. In other words, you buy something on interest, on installments. So if you use your credit card, alam mo, limit ng credit card mo ay 5,000. Ginamit mo lahat yung 5,000 na yan sa punta ka SNR. Bumili ka ng 5,000 na groceries. Sa SNR, isang pirasong karne lang yan at saka isang bote ng wine. O, di nagamit na. But you paid it. When they told you to pay it, you do not incur any debt. But the moment that you pay something on installment, no matter how cheap it is, and that is what the credit card companies want you to do. Buy and buy. Bili ka ng bili ng mga kasangkapan on installment dahil para sa iyo, napakadali. Wala kang hawak na pera. Nakabili ka pagka-uwi mo, puno yung kamay mo. May bit-bit ka na maliit electric fan, yung tulad sa akin, ganito. O, nakabili ka ng maliit electric fan, 300 pesos lang. Nakabili ka ng ganito, ring light, 500 pesos, may tripod pa, pwede mo pang gamitin sa camera. Yan, nakabili ka ng mga libro sa National Bookstore. Kaya, lumabas ka ng bahay, pamasahe lang dala mo, nakabili ka ng mga ganyan. Yung ring light, ibigay mo sa ate mo, natuwa pa siya. Yung libro, ibigay mo sa tatay mo, tuwang-tuwa siya kasi favorite topic niya, history. Tulad ko, di ba? O, kaso, pagkarating ng bill, at hindi mo binayaran ng buo, kukulang ka, i-installment mo yan, meron yung package ang bawat credit card companies. You can pay it in 10 payments or whatever it is, 10 equal payments, plus interest. Kaya ganito ang sistema sa credit card. And this is why we're talking about application payments. The credit card company will apply your payments. Yung mga payments mo per buwan, maliliit lang eh. Yung 5,000, papabayarin ka lang dyan siguro 500, 600. 600, malaki na siguro yan. I don't know, I'm just guessing. But in other words, kaya yan, di ba? 600, 700, 750. At least hindi 5,000, di ba? Na ginastos mo doon sa pupunta mo sa mall. So yung 750 na yan, madaling bayaran yan, di ba? Kaso, the credit card company will apply this payment automatically. Not to the principal, but to the interest. It's not in my lecture today. It's in a previous lecture. Remember that? When you pay an obligation, the payments will be first credited to the interest and then to the principal. And that's what the credit card is doing. And the principle is that of application of payments. They will apply it automatically without even telling you. So all along, if you keep using your credit card and buying things on installment, you lose track. You lose track of which of these obligations now are on the third payment, the first payment, etc. Hindi mo na ma-track. Alam mo sila na-track yan, yung credit card company. Sila lang may alam kung ano ba talaga ang status ng utang mo. And you will now start accumulating a debt bigger than 5,000 pesos. So although sabihin mo, sa pagkatapos ng isang taon, nakapagbayad ka na ng 6,000 sa credit card mo, bill pa rin sila ng bill. Bill pa rin sila ng bill. Because you are not paying your principal. Every month, when you pay yung 700 pesos na yan, or 500 pesos na yan, or 250 pesos na yan, na kiliit-liit, kayang-kayang bayaran, that is only payment for the interest. And when you have paid the credit card company for all of the interest and all of the loans that you paid, that you made, buying on installment, that is the only time that you are paying off your principal. And talo pa, I'm sorry to use the term, talo pa ang Mumbai dyan na nangungulekta. You know? So please, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Dadovo, be careful when you are offered your credit card and be careful when you use it. So ako, nabuisit na ako, I just paid off my credit card debt. And that is an illustration of the lesson I gave to you last week, as well as the application of payments lecture today. That the application of payments may be made automatically through the use of an accounting program or software. You will be informed about it if you know how to read your bill, or if you make proper inquiries with the company that you are making payments to, and that's when you'll probably realize. Ako nga, abogado ako, and I'm lecturing on application of payments. I did not realize I was already that the Meralco was already applying payments because I misconstrued one or two payments on installment, and Meralco automatically applied my payments to those installments which had been unpaid, such that I was, in my subsequent payments, when I thought I was paying my monthly dues fully for electricity, I was only actually paying for my past installment loan. And as accountants, as business people, you will be applying this when you want to collect from people who are paying to you, because it is in the interest of the creditor to have the most onerous debts paid first. Diba? Much like it is to the interest of the debtor to pay off his most onerous debts. So if you look at your agreement with the credit card company, yung fine print na yun, ang font niya yata, 6.5 yata eh. That's fine print in the Meralco contract, that fine print in the PLDT contract, that fine print in your credit card company contract with the bank, whether it's BDO, Citibank, wala na yatang Citibank na diretso, you have to go through a bank. BPI, nandoon nakalagay. You authorized the credit card company, you authorized the electric company, you authorized the cable TV company to set off or to apply payments when they are due. And that is required because under the law, the debtor is the only one allowed to apply payments. But in this case, it is the creditor who is applying your payments to you. So they have to get your permission. It's in that small print, in that contract. Okay, so despite my wrong example earlier in the lecture, I hope that you are able to distinguish between application of payments and compensation. Application payments is between a single debtor and single creditor, whereas compensation is mutual between creditors and debtors of each other. And please read the examples in the textbook so that you're able to have a clear understanding without having to read cases, which I had to do in preparing for this lecture. Ang gagawin ko na lang ngayon, since we seem to, ang tatalakayin na lang natin, let me stop presenting this. nilaktawan natin ang payment by session. So we are here, application of payments, linaktawan natin payment by session, tender of payment and consignation, at ang huling topic, loss of the thing due, which is a lesson in itself, condonation, confusion, tapos novation. So I think we have enough time to cover those topics in the time given to us. Ang gagawin ko ngayon, mga kaibigan, is ito ang nahalata ko kasi sa prelims at saka sa mga submissions nyo sa individual activities, ano. Like I told you last time, you should avoid itong just cutting and pasting and hoping that by cutting and pasting things, you're able to form an idea. Ito ang lagi kong tinatanong, di ba, sa inyo, bakit tayo nasa pamantasan? Bakit tayo nasa kolehiyo? Hindi ba tayo pwedeng matuto na lang sa bahay? Pwede, di ba? Self-learning. Basahin mo lang yung libro, basahin mo libro yung Delion. Kung magaling ka talaga, makakapasa ka sa board exam. But why do we go to college? Why do we covet that diploma from URS or from UP or from Ateneo or from whatever university or college we graduate from? Kaya tayo mayabang na nagtapos tayo sa kolehiyo. At iba tayo doon sa mga nag-TESDA, iba tayo doon sa mga nag-aral ng sarili nila, at nag-prosigid nilang sarili nila, at nagtayo sila ng sarili nilang business na hindi sila nagtapos sa kolehiyo. Ang ating yabang ay dahil tayo ay nag-aral ng liberal arts education. Although kayo ay Bachelor of Science, ang pamantayan, ang modality ng pagtuturo sa lahat ng kolehiyo ay sa pamamagitan ng liberal arts. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Tayo ay tinuturuan mag-isip. So bukod sa ating natututunang mga kaalaman sa accountancy, sa business law kay Attorney Balanag, tayo ay natututo paano mag-analisa, paano tingnan ang mga nangyayari sa lipunan natin, ang nangyayari sa buhay natin, ang nangyayari sa environment, sa ecology natin. Yan ay expectation sa atin, di ba? Kaya kung tayo uuwi sa ating probinsya, uuwi tayo sa ating mga mag-anak sa probinsya, ang sasabihin nila, oy, itong si Joe Balanag. 2 beses siya nagtapos sa UP. Attorney, ikwento mo nga sa amin, ano yung nangyayari sa Ukraine? Ngayon, tingnan niyo ang aking diplomas. Wala dito. Meron ba nakalagay dyan na nag-eksperto ako sa Ukraine? Wala naman. Wala naman. Ngunit, ang expectation nila, tayo mga nagtapos sa kolehiyo, ay interesado sa mga nangyayari sa ating lipunan, interesado, may konting kaalaman sa nangyayari sa ating mundo. Our skill, the skills that college teaches us is not confined to our professional skill. Please, when you pass this course from URS, a very good university, one of the best state universities in the Philippines, please do not think that you are just an accountant. You are not just an accountant. You are a citizen of the world. Alam niyo, yung unang mga kolehiyo, yung unang mga nagtapos ng matataas na pag-aaral, bago pa sila nagbigay ng mga diploma, bago pa yung Oxford at Cambridge na yan, ang test kung kailan ka naging magaling ay kung ano yung sasabihin ng professor mo, ikaw ay natuto na sa akin. And that is the system in the UK. When I represented this country in legal conferences abroad, like I told you, I represented the Philippines when we were negotiating the Hague Convention on intercountry adoption, because I was head of intercountry adoption for the Philippines. So I was sent by the country to represent the Philippines in the Hague. Kaya alam ko yung ICC na yan. It's in the same city, The Hague. The Hague is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. So when I would go there, I would compare my system of education with those that, let's say, the barristers and the solicitors. Barristers and solicitors ang tawag sa abogado sa UK. And I would ask them, what is the difference between barrister and solicitor? And it's totally different from the way I learned law. Because when I learned law, I studied the books, I passed the bar exams. lawyer na ako. You know, my German friend, he finished ahead of me. And in fact, he's already studying for his doctorate in law. He had never appeared inside the courtroom. PhD student na yan in law, ha? Sabi niya, Joe, you've appeared in cases? Yes, in fact, I've won cases in court. I've never entered a law courtroom on my own. I've always been under somebody else, my mentor, my professor in my doctorate studies. But I was never allowed to speak on my own. Ganon ang sistema nila. The first universities did not confer paper degrees, ganon. What they conferred was knowledge. And when the professor, your mentor, says, "Oh, you have the same knowledge as I. Now you can practice it. Go out. Say you're an expert in theology, you're an expert in law, you're an expert in history. Go out. You don't need a piece of paper. Just mention my name. And people will know that you have been trained well." That is what we should do in the university. Huwag natin isipin sarili natin ay accountant lamang. Tayo ay mamamayan ng buong mundo. We are expected to know many things other than accounting. We are expected to know literature. We're expected to know a little physics, a little chemistry. I don't know if you take up calculus, but you're expected to know math, definitely. I mean, college ka, you should know algebra at the very least. But please, I've forgotten my calculus because I've never had to use it after I graduated. I was asked to teach, but since I never taught calculus, I forgot about it. I taught English in my high school. I taught political science in my department, and then I went to law school. Never had the chance to go back to calculus. But I'm sure if I studied for a couple of months, I'll get it back. So you're expected to know these things. And that is why, itong segue ko, I'm going to have you read a piece of literature. And why do I do this? Banas na banas ako sa Facebook. I read the comments in Facebook, especially sa politics. Now, please, I don't want people to agree with me on everything. Because that would be a boring world, di ba? Where everybody agree. Even my wife doesn't agree with me on everything. Even my dog doesn't agree with me on everything. She bites my leg. I don't expect us to agree on everything, but I expect us to disagree in a civilized manner. In other words, when I say, I do not like this policy, it's not because kayo ay pinklawan o pulawan or kayo ay whatever, no? It is because, and I will state my reasons, A, B, C, D, E. Di ba? Ganyan ako mag-lecture sa inyo, di ba? A, B, C, D, E. Naka-order yan. At kayo ang bahala kung tatanggapin nyo si A, si B, si C, o meron rin kayong komento. Attorney, yung C mo mali yan. Alam nyo bakit? Ganito. Ito naman ang aking ABC. Ganyan ang debate ng mga intelektual. Huwag kayo magtatawag kaagad na komunista ka. Ikaw, attorney, ba naniniwala ka sa human rights? Siguro komunista ka. Sinabi ko nga doon sa mga kagrupo ko sa Facebook, kung ang batayan nila sa pagiging komunista ay yung pagiging pro-human rights at pagiging interesado sa kapakanan ng mga maliliit na tao, especially yung mga nahuli ng pulis. Yung mga nahuli ng pulis, kawawa yan. Alam niyo, paglalapit yan sa PAW, papag-plead guilty sila para lang matapos na yung kaso. Please approach the public attorney. It's my daughter from Spain. She should know better than to call me when I'm lecturing. She didn't look at the clock. Pag kayo magkakaso, try to make sure na may kilala kayong abogado na magaling-galing. Huwag kayong mag-rely sa PAW. Magaling yung mga PAW, kahit kulang talaga sila sa oras. They don't care about your case. Okay. I'm going to be giving you readings to enhance your ability to analyze. Kasi sabihin ko sa inyo ng prangkahan, your ability to analyze the questions that I gave you, whether it was during the exams or in our little activities, comic book pa lang yan, ha? Si Asterix at Obelix pa lang yan. Your ability to analyze is rather shallow. You have to impress me more than that, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm going to let you carry the proud name of University of Rizal and to be called a citizen of the world, not just a BSBA graduate. You are not just a BSBA graduate, nor am I an AB social science graduate lang. We have to be citizens of the world. We have to know what is happening in the world because alam niyo, pag may anak na tayo, pag meron na tayong mga office mates, pag meron na tayong mga empleyado, lalo na yung mga hindi nakatapos, titingin niya sa atin, sabihin nila, Ma'am Rizel de la Cruz, Ma'am Alayas Senyidosa, nakatapos ho kayo sa kolehiyo, pakipaliwanag nga ho, bakit ho ba importante ang Sierra Madre sa ating ecology at nung huling super typhoon, parang hindi tayo masyadong nasiraan ng bagay-bagay at hindi tayo masyadong pinsala sa mga buhay ng tao. Bakit ho ba? Ito ba ay dahil Kristiyano tayo, dahil tayo nagdasal, o ito ho ay dahil, ano ho ba yung Sierra Madre na yan? Ganon, di ba? Wala tinuro ba yan sa accounting? Wala yan, hindi yan tinuro. Dahil tayo nakatapos sa kolehiyo, ang expectation ng mga tao, may konti tayong alam dyan, di ba? Huwag tayong mambobola kung wala talaga tayong alam, sabihin natin. But what does it mean? And why is Attorney Balana giving these readings? It's because, like it or not, in some manner, not necessarily in politics, not necessarily environmental or ecology matters, but your daughter or your son, when he starts learning, he will start asking you questions and you better know it. You better have some sort of answer. Hindi ka pwede makapag-Google lagi. Hindi mo pwede rin sabihin sa anak ko, mag-Google ka, busy si mommy, busy si daddy. Hindi pwedeng gano'n. Kailangan magpa-impress ka rin. I want you to develop analytical minds. I'm going to finish. I'm just, nagsisegue lang ako sa papagawa ko sa inyo. So although we are studying business law, I'll give you a reading that has nothing to do with business law. Okay? And I will give you a reading in such a way that you will not Google the answers to me. Okay? Because I'm going to be very liberal in the time period. I'll give you a week to read it. I'll give it to you tomorrow. It's a book. Now, when I was in UP during my undergrad, we were required to read books all the time and expected to finish it and make a report on it. Ngayon, si Joe Balanag, magaling ako magbasa eh. I can read a book and know what are the important parts based on what I know. Wala pang Google noon, what I know of the story. So, I was asked, alam niyo, aking literature class nung college, we were supposed to read, the usual classics, Wuthering Heights, mga ganon, Catcher in the Rye, To Kill a Mockingbird. Nakornihan ako sa mga books. I suggested to my literature professor, I'll read Catch-22. Alam niyo yung Catch-22? That's a classic. Please look it up. Catch-22. And I had a pocketbook. It was quite thick, even for a pocketbook. But I read the parts of the Catch-22 which were relevant to making an analysis about the book. I only read the part of the book which were relevant to making a book review, and I got a 1. But not everybody has that talent. Okay, so I expect you to read the entire book. It's not a very thick book, but neither is it a thin book. So, and I want you to impress me with your ability to analyze. Okay, this is all really a test of, this is not just a test, this is an exercise to develop your ability to analyze a given text and come up with meaningful insight. Okay, meaningful insight. Not yung pinagtagpi-tagpi nyo hinahanap nyo sa Google or nasa inyong electronic notes ng inyong mga lessons, hoping that your professor will understand something of it. I don't. That's my analysis of your prelims and your written work so far. I'm not saying each one of you. I'm saying this in general. That's why I'm giving this remedial, this uh, augmentative readings to help you develop your powers of analysis. Okay, so I've used up my time. I hope everybody so there's no activity for tomorrow or the next week because I'll give you time to finish the book. I'll provide it electronically. It's copyright free. My objective is to develop your analytical powers. Second, to give you an interest in literature, not necessarily English. Actually, I could have given you a book in Filipino or by Filipino authors, but I just wanted to start with this one because I'll tell you frankly, it's also the first time I've read it. I've known about it, but I've never read it. So we will be reading it together. I already started. I think I'm 3 chapters already. Okay, so I hope you enjoy it. Para masabi niyo naman, uy, tapos ako sa years, nakabasa naman ako ng libro. Bukod sa aking business law, accounting books. Okay? So hopefully this is something you find useful. And hopefully it will help you increase your ability to answer my questions during the exams. So have a good weekend. Hope you are all safe. Wala akong pasalubong galing Baguio. Umakit kami ng Baguio. Nung nakita ko yung bahay, hindi naman masyado matulog. Umuwi na rin ako balik. I was driving. 10 hours ako nagda-drive. 2 oras lang kami dun sa bahay. 1 oras pa yun, nasa restaurant kami kumakain. So, but I had to do it because the house is co-owned by me and my siblings. And my siblings abroad are saying, hindi ko rin nasikaso yung bahay sa Baguio. So, umakit ako. 10 hours driving. Actually, you can get to Baguio in 3 hours. But the vehicle I used was the one, tama-tama, the vehicle I used was the one that was due for road test. So I could not exceed 80 kilometers per hour. Very slow driving. Then we had to stop every so often to have a snack or to have coffee. So, parang turok Luzon. Okay. So have a good weekend. I'll give you the readings. The reading, just one reading. And I hope you enjoy it as well as you're able to analyze the things I will ask about it later on. Goodbye.
Sir, picture po muna.
Ay, nga pala. Picture mo na.
Open cam na po. Okay po, smile po. Wait lang po, isa po. Smile. Okay na po, thank you po.
Okay, see you guys.
Thank you po, sir. God bless po.
Okay.
Thank you po.
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 Thank you po.